When I'm here, they all wanna see me like this.
This is Pastor J.P. Morgan Jr. Thank you for tuning in to this broadcast of Me First. Feel free to comment, rate, or subscribe. And please stay tuned. We have a special treat for you.
Thank you, honey, for doing my voiceover. Today, I had the pleasure of talking to Mother Fannery Baymon of Whole Truth Temple Church of God in Christ in Springfield, Mass., where the pastor is William J. Baymon Sr. Mother Baymon is not just the First Lady, but she serves as State Supervisor of Women for the Massachusetts First Jurisdiction. She is the birth mother of 3, but the spiritual mother of many, including myself. I admire her and all of what God has given to her to be a blessing to this nation. I hope you'll be able to watch until the end to hear her wisdom and knowledge that will remain relevant for years to come. Stay tuned, church.
"28 years." I'll say wonderful years.
Yeah.
Not every day was wonderful, but when I look back, they were wonderful.
And you've been married how many?
58 years and counting. As of April 30th of this year, it was 58 years. And we celebrated it on a cruise
Nice.
to the Caribbean.
Nice.
We went to Haiti, to Jamaica, and to Mexico.
Okay.
Thanks to one of the bishops in the Boston area.
Tell us what it was like raising them in the church.
It was good once I got my feet planted properly. One of the mistakes I could have made, my father corrected me early. And I would take Ann to church with me. Every time I went, Ann went with me. But I would leave the boys at home with their daddy.
Yeah.
And so my father said to me, he says, "Don't leave those boys at home." He's from Louisiana. And he said, because when my children was coming up, I left my boys at home and I took my girls to church. And he said, and sure enough, Louisiana, sure enough, my girls loved the church.
Yeah.
And my boys never did.
Wow.
And I thought about that, and I always took them. I would take them. So it was not easy to carry all 3 of them all the time, but most of the time I had them. Mm-hmm. And they loved the church.
Yeah.
They loved the church.
How long before your husband was appointed was the church in operation?
Our church is about 54 years old. Same year, New Bethel and Whole Truth were birthed at the same time.
Oh.
We were like twins.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I won't go into the circumstances,
Yeah.
but we came out of the same circumstance.
Right.
So, yeah. So my husband, it must have been like maybe 20 some years, almost 30 years, about 20 some years. He was there for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he left the church where he was reclaimed at, and came over where we were because it was just a bunch of women there and some children. Mm-hmm. No man. Mm-hmm. So he came there to be there with us. And when he got there, the Lord just began to use him, and he would preach, and he didn't know much to say. Mm-hmm. He just said, "I'm just happy tonight." He had his little sermons all written out, and he never would read them. And he would be so disgusted. He would come home and say, "I don't know why I couldn't read my message off the paper." So now that he's older, now he's reading these sermons that he wrote back then. He did an excellent job. Yeah. He's reading them now.
Wow.
But after he had been there for 3 years and the church had started growing, because when he came there were about maybe 4 or 5 adults and a bunch of young people. Mm-hmm. But after he had been there for about 3 years, and after the prayer session, we went through a whole year of prayer. Mm-hmm. The next year we couldn't come out of revival. Mm-hmm. And so after he had been there for about 3 years, the Lord allowed Bishop Young to appoint him. Mm-hmm. And after that, he had been pastoring for 7 years when we built the church from the ground with 20-some adult members. Wow. $365,000 church. Wow. But when we got ready to work with the bank, we had 82,000, 82 or 83,000 in the bank with that small amount of people.
Yeah.
Because my husband never touched church money. It went where it was supposed to go. And then by the time we built the church, and we had to pay for furniture, and they were going to have everybody coming up the handicap ramp. We had to have steps put on, and furniture for the pulpit and all that stuff, stained glass windows. We were $100-some thousand that we had to pay, but we had it. So we only had to borrow $250,000 from the bank.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
The new church just burned the mortgage.
Yeah.
Praise God.
Pretty good. Won't he do it? Won't he do it?
How did that feel?
Awesome.
Yeah.
It was just wonderful. The fact that we had paid for it in June was good enough.
Yeah.
For us to go like 2 or 3 months. But the actual celebration was just the actuality of it all.
Right.
And it was just a wonderful thing.
Awesome.
Just awesome.
That's great. Your husband left the church. How did that happen? Or tell us about that.
Well, he was close to the person that used to be the junior church pastor, who was a backslidden preacher. And they all went to Forest Park with this backslidden preacher. And he introduced them all to alcohol.
Wow. Wow.
It was about 3 of the young people, And so out of the 3, my husband was the only one that never stopped until 23 years later. The other ones, well, one of them still drinks, and one of them, who was my brother-in-law, he didn't drink very long. My husband just seemed like he couldn't stop. It was a backslidden preacher that introduced him.
And then what was that like to have to deal with?
Well, the first time I smelled it on him, I was in shock. I couldn't believe this guy. I'm like, don't I smell something on your back? No. You don't smell it. But after a while, it just all came out in the wash, And it was very difficult, I remember times when I would have to take off running from the house because sometimes he would be violent. Because alcohol did him like that. Like my brother-in-law, it just made him real silly. Yeah. He just wanted to laugh all the time. My husband, he just got mad. Wow. And it was really kind of difficult. Well, very difficult. But it was love that kept us together. And the fact that he didn't drink, well, on the end, he did drink almost every day. But he didn't fight every time. But it was not easy. And like I told him one time, I said, you know what? If I have to live in the church, I'm going to stay with the Lord. I never had to do it.
And what was it like trying to hold up your children during that time?
The funny thing is, they didn't really get it.
Wow.
None of them wanted to drink, though.
Yeah.
What? I got one that's a little sipper. But the other 2 never drank. And I think it was Mark that said, Pastor Mark, he said, all of us could have been alcoholics. Yeah. Because it was always bottles of, wow. I think it was scotch in the closet. He was a closet drinker. Wow. So he would come through if he'd walk in and he wasn't drinking, he would go into the bathroom and take a little sip and come back out. He'd listen. Maybe the living room was full of us talking. He would listen to the conversation. And then he'd go back in there. And after a while, when he came out, he was emboldened. And he would just take over the conversation. And nobody could say that. But him. Wow. So it was not easy. But somehow the Lord blessed me to know that. And this is how the Lord dealt with me. When he's up there, you stay here. Wait until he's sober up. Then you tell his head a mess. Yeah. If you have to. You need to say something back. Wait till he gets sober.
Wow. So when he gave his life to the Lord, what that had to be?
It was a marvelous night. I was in the kitchen making hats. So I used to make hats, design hats, and ship them all over the United States and outside of the United States. And so that Tuesday night I was in there making hats. And I got ready to go to bed about 11 o'clock. And I went upstairs, and my grandchildren, who were like 3 years old, Brandon was supposed to be asleep. The light was off in the bedroom. And the hallway light was on. I walk up the stairs, and he's talking out of the room to me. And I goes in the bedroom thinking my husband's in the bedroom. And I said, "Where's your grandfather?" He said, "He put on his clothes, he got his guitar, and he went to his Jesus church." At this church, they had a big picture of what's supposed to be Jesus right up in the pulpit there. So my grandson always called it Granddad Jesus Church.
Jesus Church.
So he came home that night, didn't say nothing. 2 nights later, they were in revival. Our First Lady Lola Webb was running revival. And I said, "Well, honey, I'm going to go to church with you tonight." So I get there, and my sister-in-law is sitting. I sat next to her. She said, "Girl, I had meant to come by your house, girl. I meant to tell you what happened on Tuesday night." 2 nights had gone by, 2 days, and he said nothing. He said, but he wanted me to see it.
Wow.
And he said that when he got out of church that night, actually, he was getting ready to leave, and he says, First Lady Webb looked back and said, she was so happy for him. She said, "You're being back with the Lord. You are back, aren't you?" And he says, "Not yet." She says, "Can I pray for you?"
Wow.
And that was the beginning. When she prayed for him, the Spirit took him over.
Wow.
And those yokes were destroyed. Those
Wow.
chains were broken.
Wow.
23 years.
Wow.
He went to the car, threw the cigarettes out,
Mm-hmm.
and the rest is history.
When he was appointed, tell us a little bit about that story.
Oh, the night that he was appointed, I didn't know he was going to be appointed that night. The bishop just showed up, Bishop Young. I was homesick, and he showed up and appointed him pastor while I was at home sick. And I just felt so gypped, I felt cheated, I wasn't there for it was not an official ceremony like you do on a Sunday afternoon. He just did on Friday night and went on back to Boston. And my husband has been pastor ever since,
And so then now you're First Lady. How did that feel to be now the First Lady of the church?
It's a good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make you feel uppity and above everybody, but it just gives you so many people to love, and no matter, if I go there and there were 5 of us there on that night, I'm still happy, because I know that the rest of them coming Sunday morning, but I wish they were all committed to Thursday night, like some of us are. But it's a wonderful feeling. It's a wonderful position to be in.
Is it hard to balance church schedule and being the state mother? Because you're being pulled in so many different directions and so many different churches.
In a sense, but not very difficult, because my church is so involved with jurisdictional events.
Right.
And so most of the jurisdictional events, they're going to be there as well. And my husband normally would shut down the church for convocation and spring conference. Well, spring conference, we'll have our Sunday morning service, but have it early. Convocation, he shuts it down that Sunday. Yeah, but it can be difficult.
Did you ever imagine you'd be state mother?
No. No. I was just a shy little girl.
Wow.
The shyest of all of my mother's children.
Wow.
I would never, if I were in a room with a room full of people that I didn't know, I would never say anything. My sister, Nathan, was a talker, and if I wanted a cookie, she would say she wants a cookie. I would tell her, see if I want to go to the bathroom, and she would say she wants to go to the bathroom.
Wow.
So when I was called to be a missionary, my cousin, who was a pastor in California, he said, "Oh, no, you don't mean Fanny.
Right.
You mean," they call Nathan Ducey. "You mean Ducey, not Fanny." And they said, "Yeah, Fanny."
Wow.
And the Lord, brought me out of all that shyness. He caused me to have to stand before people when I didn't want to.
Wow. Who did you watch or admire when you were younger?
Oh, my goodness. There were so many. There were so many that I admired. My state mother, Her name was Mother Norris, just a classy woman. I admired her. I admired uh, many of the church mothers, you know. Of course, the bishop and all of them, they came to our house for dinner. We were a large family. My father had 18 children, but that still didn't keep him from inviting the bishop to the house.
Right.
You know, and our bishop was a jail board member.
Wow.
But the Lord allowed him to come and share with us.
Wow. What job in the church do you think helped you get prepared to do this job?
It was the local church, you know. When I finally decided to leave the church I was at and come to Whole Truth when my father was pastoring, because I didn't come right away. It was about maybe about 3 years. And there was such a need there. And I didn't know a lot about the Bible, but I just wanted to teach Sunday school.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned the word by teaching the children. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it was little things that I did with them, little songs and little speeches and whatnot. Then they needed someone in the district to work with the children. Mm. So I worked with them there. And from there, my supervisor saw me working with the children and said, I need a jurisdictional sunshine band leader. Wow. And she asked me to do it. And I'm there doing my little thing with the kids, and Bishop Hogan, who was the Sunday school superintendent, saw me doing that. Wow. And he said, asked me to be his field worker. I'm just so shocked and honored. the preacher from Harvard University wants to know me. And I consented, and we worked together for a while. And yeah, it was a process.
Mm-hmm. First ladies give and give. Is it ever okay to just be selfish?
Well, I think it's just not a part of our nature to be selfish, you know. And God always will send someone to whatever the need is to supply them. Now, every now and then we have to be a little selfish with our time, meaning that every phone call that comes through, we don't answer it. If you need a nap, you just take your nap and answer when you get up, you know. Don't lay there with one ear open and one ear closed, one eye open and one eye closed, you know. Sometimes you have to be selfish in that manner. And but we can't show it, you know. We can't be so selfish until it just really looks selfish. Mm-hmm. But we have to take care of home and family.
What has been the greatest challenge of being First Lady?
At first, it was keeping up with all the activities we had in our church. Because the first year that my husband came there, we were in prayer for one solid year. Every time we got ready to come out for prayer, we did 21 days, and somebody said, I hear the Lord saying 30. We would just do 30. He was just new at it. He let whoever wanted to do stuff, just let us do it. Somebody had said 40, and we just went the whole year like that. Wow. But the next year, we couldn't come out of revival. It was so difficult for me to keep up with all those services. And I remember being in the car one night, and I just wanted him to look at me and say, honey, you're tired, stay home. Mm-hmm. But he was so driven towards what was going on at the church. So he's at the steering wheel driving, and I'm laying in the car, sitting in the car with my head back and my eyes closed. I felt like a kid in a wagon with somebody pulling me. It was so difficult, you know. But I have just learned to balance now, you know, not to. And then I was trying to make hats and all that stuff at the same time, but I don't have all those extra responsibilities. So those were difficult days. Yeah.
What would you say would be the greatest advantage
of being First Lady? I don't know if I can find a great advantage of it, except, you know, you have access to his needs, and you're there to, you know, hear what he has to say and minister to his needs so that he doesn't go before the people all burdened down, you know. But other than that, it's just a lot of work. And sometimes you got to go and clean the church too.
Right.
And people come in, and you come in all late, you know. You'd have been out there and cleaned the church and everything, and you come in all late, and they're looking at you. Why is she so late?
Right.
And I'm like, I was just a maid a while ago. Of course, I don't have to do that now, and since we moved in a new church, I don't really have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a time when I did.
Right.
You
know. What advice would you give to a young lady with an unsaved husband?
Stay on your knees and don't go running off just because he's not saved. If you married him and he wasn't saved, you knew it when you married him. Stay there, honey. Now, if he's beating you silly, you might want to take a run. But if he's not abusive, you need to stay there and pray. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, in my case, you know, it was all of the above. You know, there were times when there was abuse. But somehow the Lord wouldn't let me. I said that was the Lord, because what else would keep me here? You got beat up Saturday night now. And you had to run with your little daughter over to your sister's house. And by Tuesday, you're back home, waiting on next Saturday night. You know? Because somehow the Lord didn't. Because he was such a good guy when he wasn't drinking. Mm-hmm. And it only happened when he was drinking. Mm-hmm. And it didn't happen every time he was drinking. Mm-hmm. But there were some occasions. Mm-hmm. But he was just a good guy. Came from a good family, you know. Yeah.
So you would tell him, stick it out.
Stay there and pray. Mm-hmm. And sometimes God is processing you for what you're going to have to deal with later. Mm-hmm. Because now that I look back at those times that I went through, and all the bullying and stuff, I'm like, oh, when folks say stuff to me, I'm like, that ain't nothing. I can just keep on walking and smiling. I done been through hell and high water. This ain't nothing here, you know?
Wow.
And so sometimes God is processing you. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't about him even. Mm-hmm. It was about me. Mm-hmm. You know? Mm-hmm. It just took that long for me to get processed. Yeah. You know? Wow. That's what I feel.
What do you say to the First Lady that has issues with other women? Like they keep coming after your husband?
Well, you can't go after the women. Go after him. And say, honey, I need you to keep Sister Sweetie Pie out of your face. I don't want to go. And if she grinning in your face, be nice to her, make it short, and keep on moving. Because sometimes they want to just, every Sunday, here she is looking up in your eyes talking. You know. And some women just can't deal with that. But if you know your husband and know he's not that kind of a guy that's easily influenced, then you don't have to worry so much about it. You find him, hey, the devil gonna send somebody in there to think he's the cutest guy in the world. And wow. And if I was a first lady, I would do this, that, or the other. You know. Mm-hmm. But no. That's what you have to do.
What advice would you give to a new first lady who's coming out?
Well, to a new first lady, I would say, make sure you're very supportive of your husband. Make sure that they know that you are not the assistant pastor. You know, and don't take on the extra roles that you don't have to. Because sometimes when women try to be the assistant pastor, they get all in the pastor's way. But just make sure you keep you're low keyed, and you're nice and you're sweet to the people. You're sweet and you're caring and loving to your husband. And whatever your hands find to do, if nobody else will do it, you know, ask him, can you do it? Sometimes, you know, we just want to go and do stuff, and we're all in his way. He's already appointed us to do nothing, to do that job. You just, Miss I'm ready. It's already done it. Lady come in there, oh, they done already put the fans out. Mm-hmm. Oh, the programs are already laying on the seat. Make sure he knows what you're doing.
Right.
You
know. What advice would you give to the first lady that wants to walk away?
Stay there and pray. Stay there and pray. That's the enemy. That's the enemy. There's always going to be somebody in the congregation who's going to be acting crazy. There will be somebody there who will backbite you, and they'll be there to undermine you and whatnot. But work around them, you know, because you're there to help him, to be there for a support. So if he doesn't have you for a support system, sometimes the ministry will just go down. You know, stay there and pray. And sometimes the Lord will use you and the prayer that He has pressured you into to be the catalyst to start a revival at the church. And you keep on praying and fasting and staying before the Lord. And the Lord gets to blessing you and anointing you. And every time the service starts, you going up in the dance and you praising and blessing God. You're helping somebody out there, you know. Stay there, you know, and make sure that you're closer to God than you are to your husband. You know,